welcome. My name is Yana Blanco, and today we're going to explore one of the most significant decisions made by the US Supreme Court in the realm of juvenile justice. Roper v. Simmons. This case abolished the death penalty for minors. The case began in 1993 when Christopher Simmons, a 17-year-old high school student in Missouri, along with two friends, planned a chilling murder. Simon thought he could get away with it because of his age, even boasting to his friends that being a minor would protect him from harsh punishment. They broke into the home of Shirley Crook, a 46-year-old woman, where Simon and his accomplice bound her hands and feet with duct tape and electrical cords. Then they drove her to a state park, where they threw her off a bridge into a river. The woman tragically drowned, and Simon was arrested, confessed to the crime, and was tried as an adult. The primary actors in this case include Simons as the defendant, Shirley Crook as a victim, the Missouri trial courts, and later the Missouri Supreme Court, and finally the U.S. Supreme Court. The trial court in Missouri followed existing state laws, which permitted the death penalty of offenders as young as 16. After considering the heinous nature of the crime, the jury found Simons guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced him to death. At the time, the Supreme Court had ruled in Stanford v. Kentucky that imposing the death penalty on individuals as young as 16 did not violate the Eighth Amendment ban on cruel and unusual punishment. The trial court therefore upheld the sentence, consistent with existing legal standards. But as the time passed, the legal context surrounding capital punishment began to change. In 2002, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a groundbreaking ruling in Atkins v. Virginia, holding that executing individuals with intellectual disabilities was unconstitutional, as it violated the evolving standards of decency that mark the progress of a maturing society. This ruling had a profound impact on other aspects of the death penalty, including the issue of juveniles. In 2003, the Missouri Supreme Court revisited Simon's case and took a bold step by overturning his death penalty. The Missouri Supreme Court ruled that executed minors violate the Eighth Amendment. It was one of the first courts in the U.S. to apply the reasoning of Atkins to juveniles. The key legal and moral issue in Roper v. Simmons centered around whether sentencing a minor to death is a violation for the Eighth Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. The case too light broader questions about how laws should evolve in society, changing moral standards. At the heart of the debate is the notion of evolving standards of decency. Does the society now see juveniles as less culpable for their actions because of their underdeveloped maturity and greater capacity of rehabilitation? And if so, does render the death penalty for minors cruel and unusual by today's standards? These are the crucial questions the U.S. Supreme Court had to consider. In 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court took up the case with oral arguments that focus on whether society had evolved to a point where executing minors no longer aligned with accepted standards of punishment. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote the majority opinions, and in 4 of 5 decisions, that court ruled that the execution of individuals who are under 18 at the time of their crimes was unconstitutional. The court based its reasons in 2 primary points. First, juveniles are less mature and more susceptible to negative influences, which diminish their culpability. And second, the majority opinions emphasize the importance of international consensus, noting that most other countries, particularly in Europe, had already banned the execution of minors. This, according to the court, reinforced the idea that the US should follow a similar path in terms of human rights and juvenile justice. Now, how will the Workings interpretism apply to this case? Well, Ronald Dworkin's interpretism argues that law is not just a mechanical application of rules. Instead, judges must interpret the law based on underlying principles of justice, fairness, and morality. For Dworkin, hard cases, where the law is unclear or evolving, require judges that interpret the legal text in a way that best fits and justify the legal system as a whole. In Roper v. Simmons, the judge must grapple with how the Eighth Amendment's provision of cruel and unusual punishment fits with evolving society values. Dworkin will suggest that the judge not only look at the historical understanding of the death penalty, but also consider modern principles of fairness. Should a juvenile be held to the same level of responsibility as an adult, given their emotional and psychological immaturity? And does excusing a minor serve the principle of justice and in a society that increasingly values rehabilitation over retribution? Well, if I were the judge in this case, applying Dworkin's interpretism approach, I will conclude that executing juveniles is indeed unconstitutional. Why? because under the Workings theory, the law must be interpreted to reflect the principles of dignity and fairness. Juveniles, unlike adults, are not fully formed in their judgment of understanding the consequences. Their greater capacity for change and rehabilitation should be a key consideration when applying punishment. By this interpretation, sentencing a juvenile to death will not align with the moral principles that underpin the Eighth Amendment. In conclusion, Roper v. Simmons stands as a crucial case in the interpretation of the Eighth Amendment and the evolving standards of justice in the United States. The U.S. Supreme Court decisions abolished the death penalty for minors, recognizing that society understanding of cruel and unusual punishment had changed. And from the Workings interpretative perspective, judge should not simply apply the law mechanically, but should seek to align legal decisions with underlying moral principles, particularly in hard cases like this. The decision in Robert v. Simons reflects the law's need to evolve with societal values and the fundamental principles of justice and human rights. Thanks.